Hello everyone. Today we are doing lesson 27. Above all else I want to see. And we are doing text chapter 3, the innocent perception, and section 5, beyond perception. Let's begin. Section 5, beyond perception. I have said that the abilities you possess are only shadows of your real strength, and that perception, which is inherently judgmental, was introduced only after the separation. No one has been sure of anything since. I have also made it clear that the resurrection was the means for the return to knowledge, which was accomplished by the union of my will with the Father's. We can now establish a distinction that will clarify some of our subsequent statements. Since the separation, the words create and make have become confused. When you make something, you do so out of a specific sense of lack or need. Anything made for a specific purpose has no true generalizability. When you make something to fill a perceived lack, you are tacitly implying that you believe in separation. The ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. None of them is creative. Inventiveness is wasted effort even in its most ingenious form. The highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations. So, what it's saying here in these first two paragraphs is a clarifying of the things that we perceive and that we create and make. When we do these things, it's out of a sense of lack of fear. And it is basically a backwards type thinking. To create something out of lack is to say that you are believing that you are not being given everything fully by your Father. And that's simply not true. He gives us everything we need when we need it, as we need it. Continuing on. Knowing, as we have already observed, does not lead to doing. The confusion between your real creation and what you have made of yourself is so profound that it has become literally impossible for you to know anything. Knowledge is always stable, and it is quite evident that you are not. Nevertheless, you are perfectly stable as God created you. In this sense, when your behavior is unstable, you are disagreeing with God's idea of your creation. You can do this if you choose, but you would hardly want to do it if you were in your right mind. So once again, it's basically showing us that we are using wrong-minded thinking. It's like I was saying yesterday. The consciousness that we have been using is an egoic consciousness. And it is not right-minded thinking. It's not Holy Spirit's right-mindedness, His consciousness of what is right and true. And that is something that we have to become aware of. That we are not thinking right-mindedly. We are thinking with our egos. The fundamental question you continually ask yourself cannot properly be directed to yourself at all. You keep asking what it is you are. This implies that the answer is not only one you know, but is also one that is up to you to supply. Yet you cannot perceive yourself correctly. You have no image to be perceived. The word image is always perception related and not a part of knowledge. Images are symbolic and stand for something else. The idea of changing your image recognizes the power of perception, but also implies that there is nothing stable to know. Knowing is not open to interpretation. You may try to interpret meaning, but this is always open to error because it refers to the perception of meaning. Such incongruities are the result of attempts to regard yourself as separated and unseparated at the same time. It is impossible to make so fundamental a confusion without increasing your overall confusion still further. Your mind may have become very ingenious, but as always happens when method and content are separated, it is utilized in a futile attempt to escape from an inescapable impasse. Ingenuity is totally divorced from knowledge, because knowledge does not require ingenuity. Ingenious thinking is not the truth that shall set you free, but you are free of the need to engage in it when you are willing to let it go. So it comes right back, folks, to making a choice and a decision to go with Holy Spirit, to stop believing in and enacting the egoic training you have received, and to make a concerted effort to change what you think you believe, change what you think you perceive, recognizing that whatever it is that you think you're perceiving is a misperception, and be willing to let it go. Be willing to let it go in lieu of the truth. Continuing. Prayer is a way of asking for something. It is the medium of miracles. But the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. Once forgiveness has been accepted, prayer in the usual sense becomes utterly meaningless. The prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request that you may be able to recognize what you already have. In electing perception instead of knowledge, you place yourself in a position where you could resemble your Father only by perceiving miraculously. You have lost the knowledge that you yourself are a miracle of God. Creation is your source and your only real function. The statement, God created man in his own image and likeness, needs a reinterpretation. Image can be understood as thought and likeness as of a like quality. God did create spirit in his own thought and of a quality like to his own. There is nothing else. Perception, on the other hand, is impossible without a belief in more or less. At every level, it involves selectivity. Perception is a continual process of accepting and rejecting, organizing and reorganizing, shifting and changing. Evaluation is an essential part of perception because judgments are necessary in order to select. So here it's stating quite clearly that judgment is not of Holy Spirit. He's not here to judge anything, simply to give us the correction to what we have judged. And in everything we judge. This is this, that is that, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, that's ugly, that's pretty. They're mean, they're nice. All of it is a judgment. And it's learning to let go and stop judging and to ask for correction to what it is that we are perceiving and judging. Continuing. What happens to perceptions if there are no judgments and nothing but perfect equality? Perception becomes impossible. Truth can only be known. All of it is equally true, and knowing any part of it is to know all of it. Only perception involves partial awareness. Knowledge transcends the laws governing perception because partial knowledge is impossible. It is all one and has no separate parts. You who are really one with it need but know yourself, and your knowledge is complete. To know God's miracle is to know Him. So, in this paragraph, it's telling us that when we stop judging and we start perceiving truly with understanding and knowingness of this is the truth, there are no more false perceptions. They stop being. You see the truth. And in seeing the truth, you then are giving the answer. There's no second guessing, no doubting. You don't know just part of it. You are being shown all of it. An example of this would be what I was sharing about when I got an understanding of something and I brought it forth to those around me and them telling me I was wrong. And then a short while afterwards, a couple months later, everyone else around me started saying, yeah, that's true. And it's things of that nature of sticking to it, sticking to your guns of what it is that is true for you. Without doubt, without wavering, and saying, no, this is my truth. You can accept it or not, but this is my truth. Allow me my truth. And stop telling me I'm doing something wrong. You are only judging me in these moments, and in these moments, you're showing me the truth of what you think and believe about yourself. And in truth, you are only judging yourself. And when you see that and you get that understanding of clarity, the things that you perceive, as it states here, in the beginning, you only get a partial awareness of what it is that you think you're perceiving. And once you get the truth of that, you stop seeing bits and pieces of it. You see the whole. All of it in its entirety. You're given that clarity. But in everything, you have to go in and ask for it. You've got to ask for the correction. So continue on. Forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. Correct perception of your brother is necessary because minds have chosen to see themselves as separate. Spirit knows God completely. That is its miraculous power. The fact that each one has this power completely is a condition entirely alien to the world's thinking. The world believes that if anyone has everything, there is nothing left. But God's miracles are as total as His thoughts because they are His thoughts. As long as perception lasts, prayer has a place. Since perception rests on lack, those who perceive have not totally accepted the atonement and given themselves over to truth. Perception is based on a separated state, so that anyone who perceives at all needs healing. Communion, not prayer, is the natural state of those who know. God and His miracle are inseparable. How beautiful indeed are the thoughts of God who live in His light. Your worth is beyond perception because it is beyond doubt. Do not perceive yourself in different lights. Know yourself in one light where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear. That was Chapter 3, The Innocent Perception, Section 5, Beyond Perception. And the last two paragraphs here, folks, are showing us that when we give over and ask for the correction and receive the truth and choose to enact and live that truth in our lives, we no longer have a sense of needing to pray for things. We no longer have a sense of needing to correct brothers or anything else. We simply want to commune with them. We want to share where we are, where we've been, and the lessons learned. That's a form of communing. Coming together and opening a dialogue with your brothers about what it is you are experiencing in your life. It's listening to what your brother is going through without judgment, without trying to give advice, and just hearing where they are in that moment, allowing the truth of what it is they are going through from Holy Spirit's point of view, not from what you think may be going on. It's to truly listen to hear what's happening with them. And in the same way, it's to have your brother sit there and listen to what you are saying, experiencing, feeling. And instead of them telling, oh, you should do this or you should do that, or you shouldn't go there, or why would you ever do or think something like that? Instead of doing things like that, it's sharing with them where you're at, the things that you have gone through, and the lessons you've learned from them. Similar to what I've been doing here in these videos with all of you. Sharing my experiences and the understandings I've been given based off of the lessons I've learned and following His truth. Always going within and asking Him to correct my perceptions about what I think is going on. I don't sit here trying to say, oh, I know what it is. I know what should be done. I know what you need to do. No. Every time I just keep saying, do the work. Go within to Holy Spirit and ask Him to correct your misperceptions. In truth, that's all we can do. When there's something that comes up that we have no understanding of, we just say, take it within to Holy Spirit and ask Him for an understanding and a correction of what it is that you're perceiving and doing here. Only in that way can you be healed from it. Let's move on. Lesson 27. Above all else, I want to see. Today's idea expresses something stronger than mere determination. It gives vision priority among your desires. You may feel hesitant about using the idea on the grounds that you are not sure you really mean it. This does not matter. The purpose of today's exercises is to bring the time when the idea will be wholly true a little nearer. There may be a great temptation to believe that some sort of sacrifice is being asked of you when you say you want to see above all else. If you become uneasy about the lack of reservation involved, add, vision has no cost to anyone. If fear of loss still persists, add further, it can only bless. So, what it's talking about here is, I can speak from experience with this. When I first came across this, I could feel resistance in myself to not really wanting to see the truth of what I was thinking, believing, and doing. That accepting a responsibility that I was causing everything I was going through really terrified me on a very, very deep level. And it made it so that even though I did the work in the workbook as it's stating for me to do it, I could feel the resistance deeper within me, showing me how fearful I was of seeing the absolute truth. Now, keep in mind, folks, I'm empathic. In growing up, I literally had to shut down my abilities to survive. Every time that I spoke up about the things I was experiencing and perceiving, I would incur the anger and animosity of those around me, to where they would become physically violent at times. And the more I tried to speak my truth at that time as a child, the more I was punished for it. And it taught me to stop speaking up, to cower down in fear and shame, as if I was the one doing something wrong, and I wasn't. And it wasn't until after I started doing this course that Holy Spirit started bringing things to my attention. I kept coming across people that were into astrology and all kinds of other stuff within the community. And they kept asking me things like, oh, when were you born? Do you know what time? What city? Blah, blah, blah. And finally, I was like, okay, this keeps coming up. Let's see where it takes me. I gave them my information. And the first thing they came up with was my life path number, which is 22. And they start reading off how the 22 is a master builder, master teacher, and all kinds of other stuff. And I was like, oh, hell no. I don't want to be anybody's teacher, let alone anybody else's student. I had already been finding that I was absolutely refusing to follow anyone else for any reason. I was so sick and tired of the bullshit I kept hearing from people, feeling inside a discordant feeling, a conflicting feeling when I would hear their words. And I could hear the angst and anger that someone was expressing and feeling, and I was feeling as if they were angry at me, and that I was the one that was the cause of their animosity and anger in that moment. And as I've been working this course, Holy Spirit has come forward to me full force, unlocking all those things I had locked down as a child and then some, and showing me the truth of what I had done there and locking those down and blocking them out, and showing me that I needed to get back in touch with what I was feeling inside, recognizing what was my own true emotion and not what I was picking up from those around me. And that kind of clairvoyancy can be very intimidating and very overwhelming. And I had to learn to discern what was mine and what was somebody else's. And he had me doing like this constant questioning with my husband. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Is there anything going on with you right now? So when I was feeling something that didn't feel like it was my own, and I would ask my husband those questions, and he would share what he was thinking, feeling, going through. And sometimes it was like pulling teeth to get him to open his mouth, period. I was very quickly shown that 9 times out of 10, what I was experiencing was his emotions, what he was dealing with on a mental and emotional level, and not communicating it with me, not bringing it out into the light and into the open. He was letting it play over and over and over again in his head, eating at him continuously. And in that way, a lot of us do the same thing. We don't open our mouths and share what we are thinking, feeling, and experiencing, keeping it on ourselves. We tend to point fingers, place blame somewhere else outside of us because we don't want to own what we're experiencing within ourselves. And it's that kind of stuff that I was being shown, and being shown to stop doing, to learn how to discern what was mine and what was someone else's. Now, here's the kicker, folks. Everyone, including you, is empathic. We've just been taught to deny it, to discredit it, to disown it. Seriously consider that and think about that for a moment. Take yourself back to your childhood. And anytime someone said something and you had that feeling, that doesn't sound right, that doesn't feel right, and you would question it, and they would be like, just do what I say. Or don't you talk back to me, don't you question me, and they backhand you. It's those kinds of things that reinforced us to stop questioning. And in everything, it's questioning what it is you think you are perceiving, think you are experiencing. Question it. A lot of this is all coming down to questioning everything you've been taught to believe. Who are you? Why are you here? Why are you experiencing the things you're experiencing? It's asking those questions that open the door to looking within at what you think and believe defines you. What you think and believe defines everyone else around you. And what you think and believe defines everything and the world itself around you. Question it, look at it. Open a dialogue, whether it be with a coworker, your spouse. Talk to them about the things that you are thinking and believing and feeling and experiencing within yourself and around you. And keep it on yourself. Say, I keep thinking this, I keep feeling this and experiencing this, and it just doesn't feel right to me. And I'm asking for understanding of what it is I'm seeing, what it is I'm feeling and thinking and experiencing here. And as I'm doing it, it's like I get these little snippets, these little purviews of these things that happened to me as a kid or happened to me last week or 5 minutes ago. And I'm looking at it, trying to figure out why it is I'm going through it. And as you're doing that and bringing it forth into the light, you're allowing the opportunity for Holy Spirit to show you that truth. As you bring it into the light and you are asking the questions, asking for the correction, you are availing yourself an opportunity to choose differently and choose again. Let's continue on. The idea for today needs many repetitions for maximum benefit. It should be used at least every half hour and more if possible. You might try for every 15 or 20 minutes. It is recommended that you set a definite time interval for using the idea when you wake or shortly afterwards, and attempt to adhere to it throughout the day. It will not be difficult to do this, even if you are engaged in conversation or otherwise occupied at the time. You can still repeat one short sentence to yourself without disturbing anything. The real question is, how often will you remember? How much do you want today's idea to be true? Answer one of these questions and you have answered the other. You will probably miss several applications and perhaps quite a number. Do not be disturbed by this, but do try to keep on your schedule from then on. If only once during the day you feel that you were perfectly sincere while you were repeating today's idea, you can be sure that you have saved yourself many years of effort. That was lesson 27, Above All Else I Want to See. And those last two paragraphs, folks, it's basically telling you that do the lessons. Don't be hard on yourself. Be gentle with yourself. It can be very, very difficult to stick to and adhere to the guidelines they place here. It can be very difficult to remember to do it throughout the day. I know this from fact. My efforts and energies in trying to do this stuff, I felt that everything in the world was against me at the time. And believe me, that kind of antagonistic energy can be a pain. Just recognize that the more you stick with it and you catch yourself when you've forgotten, bring yourself right back to that point. Say, okay, I forgot to do it a little bit ago. Let's do it now. And continue on from that point, trying to adhere to what the lesson's telling you to do. All you can do is try and give it your absolute best effort. Perfection is not required here, folks. Just a little bit of willingness to try to do the lessons. My name's Sabrina Reyenga. This was lesson 27, Above All Else I Want to See, with chapter 3, The Innocent Perception, section 5, Beyond Perception. Thank you for joining me today. Have a wonderful day, folks. Things aren't easy. Things are getting very difficult out there for everyone. And as we watch those closest to us stumble and falter as they try to do this course, I find for myself, I have to be even stronger in my faith, in my belief, to continue on as I'm doing, and to shine the light for them in those moments. Because in truth, every moment of the day that I'm connecting with my brothers, I am here to be a beacon of light to them. In sharing His truth and light that I have been shown, I am providing a light of hope and understanding for those around me. And in that same way, you will be providing a light of hope and understanding for those around you. It matters not if you think it's happening. It matters not if you see it happening. Know that as you put these things out there, it is helping someone out there too. You may not know it, but as you extend that truth and light, others are reaching for it. Always. I love you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.